Welcome to another live episode. I am your host, Wize, and I'm excited for my guest to come on. He has a great story, so let's not hesitate and let's just bring him on the show. Welcome, Joe Malone.
What's happening, man? Thanks for having me on, brother.
The pleasure's all mine, man. So let's just jump right into this. Um, so what inspired you to start your Southern Cross Safety Academy and focus on the personal safety training?
Yeah, so I got out of the military in 2019 after 13 years, and I really just got sick and tired of working overseas, supporting the wrong people, kind of an agenda that I didn't really agree with anymore. And in my time in there, I was a special operations Marine, and so I thought to myself, what could I help people out in America with? How can I, transfer those skills into the private sector? And it just made sense to me to teach people how to be safe against violence and violent crime. Shortly thereafter, 2020 breaks out, and it's kind of really unique timing, great timing for me and what I had going on, because nobody knew how to take care of themselves. People didn't know how to handle themselves when cops couldn't respond. People didn't know how to handle themselves when the ambulances weren't showing up on time. And ultimately, people didn't know how to defend their homes, how to keep their homes safe. And that really transpired into a lot of workplace violence prevention as well. But so that's kind of really where it all began.
And you're right. It's something that I took up myself. I have a friend who's teaching me how to use the gun that I purchased properly, and he's teaching me all the safeties and all the cleaning methods and everything, because you want to be responsible at whatever you do. And so, eh, and this was right, like you said, during 2020, because there was a lot of craziness going on. People, like you said, weren't responding and all that. So it's something that I could understand where people need this training, because I'm a regular guy. I don't. These are things I don't really you don't think of at a certain point.
Right.
But to have a specialist like yourself come out and start training people the proper way to protect themselves and security and all that's an amazing that's something that people are lacking.
Yeah, it's really just this like combination of a lot of different things, and my observations and then my experiences all over the world. I mean, I've been to like 40 some countries at this point, man, and I've worked in just about every single one of them. And if I wasn't working in them, I was probably backpacking across them. So I've lived in a lot of various environments and a lot of different cultures. And one thing that I've noticed is that in the United States of America, you talk to anybody who's immigrated here and they love it, and they're like, why would anybody want to change this? But you talk to the people who are raised here, who've never really been outside of the confines, the secure confines and the safety of the United States of America. It's like a child who's never been outside of their home, and then they're complaining about, oh, I hate my house because there's all these rules and restrictions in place. And then they go outside their home, they get beat up by like a bunch of local kids or something, and then they'll realize really quickly how nice it is in the confines of that home. But I digress to, well, I'm an anti-violence advocate that teaches violence. And that throws a lot of people off when we talk about lethality, when we talk about having the ability, the capability to harm or kill somebody. But the reality of that is, in my observations and the places that I've gone across the world, kind of bringing it back here to, the kid inside of their home who's never walked outside of their home, where those who are capable of great lethality are capable of preserving great peace. And nobody wants to harm another human being unless you're like a violent criminal or an evil person, which they do exist. Like evil exists in the vast majority of this world. The United States is a very isolated nation. Don't get me wrong, happens here all the time. Talk to a 911 operator. They'll tell you. They will
Yeah.
tell you. But unfortunately, good times breed weak people. And when people don't have the ability to defend themselves or one another with great lethality, then unfortunately we see a lot of fear begins to develop, and people start to freeze, and they don't stick up for one another.
So and it's like I said, this is not something a lot of people aren't teaching this training. What what made you feel like this was, I understand everything else, but where did you see like this is something that can really be, I can really be successful at it?
Yeah, so it started actually with active shooters. Um, a lot of people don't understand like what goes down in the special operations community. You know, you see some videos of Navy SEALs, you think, oh, cool, boats and kicking indoors and stuff. And yeah, sure, that is a part of like the special operations warfare. But really what it's about is you link up with untrusted people in foreign environments, and then you live with them and you train with them and you go to combat with them. Eventually you go and you fight alongside them against whatever evil force it is that you're trying to prevail against or overcome. And the consequence to that is there's a lot of insider attacks. So something most commonly heard on the news was green on blue incidents. Green meaning the partner force, blue meaning US forces. And you hear about that in Afghanistan. I mean, both my Afghan deployments, we had green on blue incidents. And so living in this consistent insider threat environment, you're having to constantly be ready and prepared to respond to those types of situations. It's an active shooter situation. You're having to constantly gather atmospheric data, read people. Reading people becomes second nature to you. You could easily see through a facade somebody's putting on, or if their words aren't meshing up with their body and their action, the harmony between them, you start to really look at this person a little extra more closely. And so when I saw schools getting shot up like crazy, first and foremost, they're going into these lockdowns. Like, what the, like, why are we locking kids in a classroom when there's somebody roaming the halls shooting everybody? And so I was like, okay, people need my help. I was like, I'm getting out of the military. Schools are going to be so happy that I'm giving them this amazing information of how to get out, how to gain accountability, how to, get kids to safety. It's very simple to do, by the way. You have 4 pre-designated cardinal driven rally locations, like 100, maybe 200 yards away. So a football field or two, it doesn't require much. And when I got there, dude, schools are the worst. They are so full of themselves. The administration is. They think they know what's best. They clearly don't. And when it comes to safety and security, and they were literally like laughing me out of their institutions. A former special operations Marine who's a certified protection professional, the highest certification you could have in the world when it comes to the security industry, who's got a lot of experience with insider threats. I gave these people free plans and they literally looked at me like I was crazy. And so I kind of took a big step back and I was like, all right, well, I got to be able to figure something out here. And I do a lot of firearms training, and that is really where the momentum started to build. Is that people were asking me for firearms training, which turned into like some corporate training for like conflict de-escalation or active shooter preparedness. Corporations are better to work with than schools because they're less egomaniacal, and ultimately, what that morphed into was I started learning people were asking more questions, like scenario-based questions for using justified deadly force, or home safety, or kid safety, or grandparent safety. And so ultimately, I ended up developing a coaching program where we start with your mind, we work on your nutrition and your body. And I've used myself as like the example in all this. I got a little out of shape when I left the military just from depression and drinking and booze and all that stuff, which I overcame and I don't deal with anymore. But we work on your mind, we work on your nutrition, we work on your body, and then we work on your lethality. And what I'm seeing is people want to be certain whether or not somebody's a threat to them or not. And they want to be more present in their life, and they want to spend more time with their kids, and they don't want to have to spend their whole day worrying about whether or not that person is a pedophile or if this person's a criminal. They just want to be able to know what to do if they are, and if not, move on and be present with their kids and their life and their family.
Wow, that is that's it's amazing. It's something that you don't really think that people really think about. That they don't focus on that. They don't realize that the dangers that are around them, and actually being able to have an expert like yourself. And you're right, it is corporations are much more easier to work with. it's just the facts. They're
Yeah.
they're more they're more receptive to what you're trying to teach because schools they're stuck in their ways.
Yeah, unfortunately, man, it's yeah, every time I see it on the news, dude, it drives me crazy, man, because they're like, "Oh, school shootings. Well, how does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening?" It's because you're not doing anything about it. You're literally locking kids in the classroom. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen on the face of the planet. Like, oh, there's somebody with a gun trying to kill as many people as possible. Let's all stand still.
And,
It's insane.
and then when he gets into a classroom, they're right there.
Well, let's just hope that he doesn't kill us, even though that's their
Right.
whole intent is to kill as many people as
And
possible. So,
and no, you see, and Uvalde, Texas was an example. They locked it down, and he was able to do what he did, and it's tragic. And people want to talk about gun reform. No, it's more what are we doing when there is a situation like that to really protect our kids?
oh man,
You, you, you're just setting them up. You're just having them. You're just like keeping them bunched up, and and it's just like, okay, they're just like ducks in the barrel.
it literally is. And with Uvalde specifically, there was like a lot of stuff that shouldn't have never gone down. I mean, this dude literally crashed his vehicle in front of the school. Teachers went out there to see if he was okay. He shot at them. They ran inside. The door was still left open somehow. He hopped over a fence, ran around the friggin' field for a little bit, then eventually ducked inside. And so it's like there was a lot of stuff. Now, when the threat's outside of the school, sure, I believe in lockdown. If they would have just locked the damn door, it would have been a different story, right?
Yeah,
But the moment that he made entry into the school, he did kind of run pretty quickly into a classroom. But what did they do with the rest of the kids? They had the rest of the kids. So if he wanted to, he could have been going from room to room.
yeah.
Like the Nashville shooting, a big reason why the Nashville shooting had so little casualties is because the teachers took their kids and they ran. Like it's just the most common sense. Distance plus time equals safety. The further you are from anybody ever trying to harm you, the safer you're always going to be. Always. That's why I always recommend for like non-lethal training, you use pepper spray, not knives or tasers or nothing like that, because you're closing that distance. You want to increase that distance.
Yeah, we want to keep them as far away possible.
Exactly. And people just don't. People will say, "Oh, pepper spray doesn't really work," and I'm like, "Well, let me pepper spray you." And nobody ever wants to get pepper sprayed, even though they say it doesn't work. It's just because you don't know what it's actually designed to do. It's designed to buy you time so you can get further away. But I digress to, there's a lot going on in our society, as you know, which is why we keep seeing these acts of violence increasing. And the thing is you can never at one point at time at all in history, never has controlling or manipulating or legislating people into doing something ever been successful. You could only empower people. That's all you could do. You could only empower people with knowledge and with skill, with education and with action. Tony Robbins always says knowledge is not power. Knowledge plus action is power.
Yeah.
And that's the education plus the training. That is what develops skill. Skill is power. The more skills you have, the more powerful as a human being you become. And that's what we need to do more of. I don't know about, arming teachers and all that stuff. I'm sure that there's qualifications and people who could do it. I would recommend the federal air marshal qualification, but each case is going to be unique and different. But the big thing is that we need to be empowering people and not disempowering people. That's never worked ever in history.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with what you just said. So you're also an author. You wrote the Women's Safety Guide. What inspired you to write that?
Yeah, so the Women's Safety Guide was inspired by, well, a couple of things actually. One was I was given a corporate conflict de-escalation training, and quick note on de-escalating conflict. By the way, the best thing you could do to be good at de-escalating conflict, to avoiding violence, is to be very good at violence, is to be very lethal. The greater your lethality, the greater you are at avoiding and de-escalating conflict. So I was teaching a conflict de-escalation class to a corporate client of mine, and the class on this day happened to be predominantly women. There was 20 women in this class and one male in this class. And all my training is very interactive. We're sharing stories. Everything I teach is from my own life experiences. So I've got stories for days on how I got beat up or how I got stabbed or how I got jumped or how I crashed a car or how I held a gun to a guy's head. And then it turned out, I shouldn't have been holding it to his head. I should have been holding it to another guy, all these crazy stories, right? So it's a very interactive experience for people, which elicits a lot of response from them as well. And what I noticed about halfway through the day was that all the women had been sharing stories. The guy hadn't shared any, but all the women had shared multiple stories. So they weren't just sharing one time they were sexually harassed, one time that they were, hit by a coworker, one time they weren't, multiple. So I kind of took a pause and I was like, how many of you in here have been in fear for your well-being or have been damaged, like traumatized by somebody physically, like raped or something like that? And every single woman in the classroom raised their hand. I mean, it makes me like tear up to this day to just think back to all their faces. And dude, I was just like, I got to do something about this. And so from there, I teamed up with like this local politician, and he wanted me to do a class for like 15, 20 women. I said, dude, you've got resources like for marketing, for networking. Let's like get like as many as we can, dude. We had over 350 registrants. We had 200 women show up to this next event. And dude, I was so pumped because not only are we spreading a lot of good word, but we have women in a concentrated geographic region. Like, dude, the creep on the bike trail's got it coming, like can you just imagine if every woman in your township was, one, armed with pepper spray, and two, armed with the knowledge and the education on how to use it properly and how to identify criminals and creeps? I mean, you're going to see it on the newspaper, like local creep gets jumped by 6 women, like cell phone footage of them pepper spraying him, kicking him while he's down. So I was really pumped for this. Well, I don't know what happened. I think I just tried to do a little bit too much with too little. And dude, this event, like, oh no, it just didn't really hit the mark, man. It was a pretty big flop in my opinion. Now, a lot of people had like a lot of really positive reviews of it.
Yeah.
But I'm a very empathetic dude, and I know like when things resonate, when it hits, and that's just, dude, it fell short, man. It was like, so I was like really frustrated about that. And I went home that night and I literally sat at my computer for 4 or 5 days. I slept a little bit, but literally I did not leave my computer, and I wrote out everything that I intended to deliver to them that night. And from there, man, that's what created the Women's Safety Guide, was everything that I failed to illustrate and convey. I wanted to make sure that, one, like I was able to get the message out there somehow, and that two, I wasn't crazy, like I was actually making sense in my own head. And ever since then, though, it's been awesome, dude. We've done many women's safety events, and yeah, it's been great, dude. It was a failure. Success is built on failure, right?
And so is it really a failure then? It's a lesson learned.
Correct. Correct.
It's more of a lesson learned, and now, like you said, you've had more events after. They're much better. And that's it's crazy because I know how like when I started and everything, I is you expect to be, you expect to be, so great. No, man, you're gonna suck at first.
Yeah.
It's repetition. It's wanting to do it more. It's learning. It's reading. It's practicing. It's doing all these different things to improve.
Never giving up,
Yeah,
never give up.
it, I could have given up like after my first week, but because you the first few months you're like, oh man, nobody's downloading, nobody's listening. I haven't had, and so to get to where now I just so for my first 2.5 years, I reached 10,000 downloads, and I've been podcasting since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And in these last 6 months, I've matched that total. I've gone over 20,000 downloads.
Congrats, man. Nice.
So it's the consistency. It's me continuously to want to improve and want to get better.
Dude.
And so it's it takes you wanting to practice. It's wanting to learn from experts like yourself and other people out there, and just keep developing.
Dude, you can never stop, man. And that's today, but this morning, every morning, I do like a post on my Instagram story. And this morning, it was all about persistence, bro. It was all about persistence and keep trudging through the doubt.
And another thing I love about going live is I have people that like to interact. I have a good friend; she's a fellow podcaster. She might be might be even have her. She might have you on her show. She's amazing, but she has a question. She wants to know about, because her family's all of her, including herself and her family, are autistic.
Hmm.
She has a question. What are his thoughts on for families and emergency responders having the best practices for special needs individuals?
Yeah. So special needs individuals, pretty broad, but for autistic, so for someone who has autism specifically,
Yes.
which resonates with me. I'm really really close with some people who have autism. It's one is getting that information to that. If there's an emergency responder coming, they should be trained. Depending upon where you live, if you're more rural area, they probably have less training, like a volunteer department versus like an in city one. But they'll be trained in how to handle all sorts of people who have all sorts of perspectives on life, and autism is certainly one of them. Now, it gets a little tricky when someone who they trust, like as herself, is not present in that particular interaction. It gets a little tricky. Um, and also depending upon the age. So if there's a way, like usually like a cell phone, if they have a cell phone, and you have like in the emergency contacts, like the medical part of the cell phone where emergency responders can go in there and look at it, or if you have like some sort of a note that you put in their wallet, keep in their wallet like a card, or sometimes I've even seen like in the military, we put like allergy tags in the shoelace, and then we tuck it in the shoelace. And so if there's something like that, or like a bracelet or a necklace that identifies, because there's varying levels of autism. So if somebody has like a pretty, if they're pretty deep into it, having like a tag on them would be really beneficial and useful for somebody like that. But yeah, I would just say if, you know, pretty general response right there. But if you have something more specific you kind of want me to answer on, yeah, just let me know and I could always break it down a little bit further. But generally speaking, if you're dealing with emergency situations and you get separated from that loved one and you're that person that they trust, then I would have something on them that could at least identify or mark them as such. So people are just aware and they know how to interact with that person.
And she does trainings herself for that reason exactly, because there's not many people that know how to respond to certain situations like that. So she goes and she trains them, and she shows them. So it's when you find that need that needs to be filled, it's a great feeling to be able to, because now you're feeling like, oh man, I found my purpose. I'm doing something that people need to learn about. See, people need to discover. People need to know this because it can save their lives. It can have a major impact on their lives.
Dude, it's it gives me chills. It really does, because as people, we usually don't think like, oh, I have the ability. We naturally don't have the default thought process of like, I'm just going to go ahead and change all these lives with everything that I do. You're always filled with self-doubt and you're self-conscious of yourself, right? But when I talk to a mother's children about what to do in an active shooter situation, and she comes up to me afterwards and she says, thank you so much, you are just so awesome. Because these kids I just talked to recently, they had just been through an active shooter incident, and they were having some trouble, and it wasn't like a school active shooter incident. It was more like a gang related active shooter incident in downtown Chicago. But they were there, they were present. They got locked in the back room with their dad for like 45 minutes or an hour or something. And she said after talking with me, like they just have been different, like they were like, okay, cool, we did what we could have done, and we know what to do next time. Or when you talk to a dude and you train a dude on how to properly use firearms for self-defense. I had another student of mine a couple months ago, road rage incident. Guy cuts up in front of his car. My student, the dude said he didn't know what he did wrong. This guy cuts in front of his car on a side road, gets out with a pipe. He draws the gun. Okay, cool, man. Let's talk about this. The dude got back in the car, drove off. Nobody got hurt. But there were some things that he could have done a little bit better in case the dude would have escalated it to the next level. Awesome. That's one-on-one coaching right there. That's what I do, man. That's what we do. And you're absolutely right. When you teach somebody how to give CPR to a child or how to do the Heimlich to a child, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man. I just keep stacking up. Or this girl who was being spied on by some pedophile, this young girl, college girl. Sorry, man.
So it's life happens, but listen, life happens. Like I said, I've had my grandson come in here and unplug my whole setup while recording. So it happens. Listen, I'm all about family. This is family always comes first, man. Regardless.
It's a beautiful thing, man. But yeah, so it's just when she tells me that she's opened her blinds for the first time after taking one of my safety courses, that stuff just means the world to me, dude, because ultimately security is the number one priority. Like, you don't get anything unless you're secured. You don't get a sense of peace. You don't get to drink. You don't get to eat. You don't get to sleep. You don't get to love. You don't get to be present. And I'm all about presence, man. Life is so short. And we've grown so dissonant with one another. We have so much distrust for each other based off of this negative news feed being propagated, this message that resonates with the primitive part of our brain to keep us registered as viewers so that the ratings keep going up or remain consistent. It's most of it's BS, man. Most people are good people. And we just to learn how to view one another as that again.
It's ridiculous that they got us divided by colors.
Dude, don't, man, you're going to get me started over. I couldn't believe it, bro. 13 years in the Marine Corps, man. And I grew up in Chicago, dude. I grew up in an incredibly diverse, environment. Like, most of the kids who went to my school weren't black, but I think it was like 40% was. And so it was just like this crazy melting pot of Arabic and Greek and, Spanish, dude, everywhere. Chicago's a melting pot.
And I'm from New York City. And
dude, exactly.
So I know, for me growing up, I never saw color. It was always my friends, and I went to school with all different types of races, but it was just normal to me. It wasn't. I didn't look at it as, oh, he's white. No, that was my friend, and it's just different now, because now they wanted us divided. It's like, oh, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're this, you're that. And that's something I discussed about, is that we're a country of labels.
Dude.
Like, I want to, why do I have to be Hispanic American? I'm American. Why does I have to be Afro-American? Or why do I have Chinese American? We're all just American. I'm tired of labels. I'm tired of people saying that, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Like, listen, we're human beings.
Dude. You can't tell a black, Mexican, white, Asian person by their DNA. You can't. Isn't that crazy? And the most molecular compounded structure of human existence, you cannot tell if somebody's one race or the other race. That's why it's beautiful. It's wild. But yeah, here we are, like you're saying, and I've got my theories on this, man. Like, working in the areas of government that I've worked in, I do think that it's all external influence trying to tear us apart from the inside. You look at like Maoist doctrine from communist China and North Korea. That's I don't know if you ever heard of a woman called I think it's Naomi Parks, North Korean defector woman, but she talks about how the labels is how communists divide society. Mask or no mask, vaccinated or not vaccinated, black or white. That's how they begin to divide these classes of people, and then they pit them against each other. And dude, it's, it always comes back to this though, right? Let's say you and she and he and I all know how to take care of ourselves in the most crazy situations. We know how to use firearms safely and properly and appropriately. We know how to be lethal, right? I'm less paranoid about running into you on the street. Why? Because I know that I can handle myself. You're less paranoid of running into me. Why? Because you know you can handle yourself, and so forth and so forth. And then on top of that, we don't even want to harm each other. So if we can just cool off this sympathetic nervous system, that response in the brain that causes us to fight or flight, if we could just cool it down a little bit, take a second, allow the information to go to the logical part of the brain, man, I think we'll realize really quickly. I don't think that America's doomed. A lot of people do these days. I don't. I think that good will triumph over evil. And I think that it's going to require us to have open communication and again, self-reliance and that lethality.
Yeah, we have to be able to come together, and we've shown that we together. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing when we're together. 9/11 showed that.
Dude,
After 9/11, everyone was united. It was amazing,
it was a beautiful thing. I
and
mean,
and and,
because it
and
was.
it was so now you see we can be united, but we have again these labels. It's just ridiculous, man. But it's great thing that you are out there, um, showing people how to protect themselves. And you're absolutely right when it comes to being it. Oh, I forget his name, but he talks about that. Yes, you should be a violent man. It's that violent man and learning how to control that man,
Yes.
knowing that you can be a violent man at any time and be able to control that. That's real strength.
I think you're talking about Jordan Peterson.
Yes, Jordan Peterson, absolutely yes.
And everybody hates that dude. And I'm like, why?
Because he speaks what he says. It makes sense, and they don't want that.
True. I mean, that's what it is at this point. There's when I say like, the elite class, I'm not talking about just billionaires, right? Like there's like a what we call a shadow governance group of people, lobbyists, influential, wealthy people. But not just because you're wealthy does not mean you're an evil person by any means. Actually, when I was raised, hey, you're a Democrat if you're for the poor people, you're a Republican if you're for the rich people. And as I grew older and as I've actually met millionaires and billionaires, dude, they're actually really great, hardworking people, the ones that I've met. Like they've
Mhm.
struggled, they've come from very, very modest means, and
Yeah,
they've worked to contribute to a better society. So when people get this whole one percenter thing going, that's not necessarily the elite people that we're concerned about that want to manipulate and control and divide the American public. But there is groups of people out there who I absolutely 100% believe that that's what they want, and they profit off of it. And if so, I used to do a lot of drugs, right? And I was when I left the military, I almost killed myself. And I look back now and I think about these phases of my life, and I preach this to people, like, especially younger people. Like if you're doing drugs, if you think like you're just living in the moment and you end up like shooting some dope because you just need to forget the pain, or you're just smoking some meth or whatever it is, you are a sucker. You're falling subject to the agenda that these people want you to have. They want you to be numb and dumb and stupid and addicted. Like if you really want to go against the system, because that's why I started doing drugs. I was like, oh, screw the man, screw the system. I'm gonna do what I want. Watch, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna do drugs. And before you know it, I ended up putting needles in my arm at like a really early age. That's what they want me to do. As I'm getting out the military, I'm all depressed, a lot of survivor's guilt, feeling certain ways about things. I got a gun in my mouth, I'm ready to pull the trigger. That's what they want me to do. For every veteran that kills themselves, they make it that much easier for America to be manipulated or negatively, influenced and taken over by these people who just want to confuse the hell out of us and divide us further.
yeah, and just control, like you said, control us. It's definitely they want to definitely have control over us, and but if we continue to have people like yourself, people like me who are willing to speak up on subjects like this, willing to let people know that hey, you don't have to be that way. You can go this. There's alternatives. There's other ways for you to help, and that's what life is being able to learn and grow together and help each other out and help uplift each other.
Dude, service to one another. If you're depressed, go out and do something good for a stranger. That will elevate your vibrational frequency faster than just about anything else. I think it's like servitude and then gratitude for the conditions that you have, regardless of what they are. And I speak on this stuff like because I come from it. It's all from my experiences. I've been
Mhm.
super grateful and I had nothing, Nothing at all in my life. I've gone out and I've performed acts of service for other people for expecting nothing in return. And it elevates me. It's not a narcissistic feeling when we do good things for people. We're designed that way as human beings. And when we do things for one another, genuinely, it elevates us to a whole different vibrational frequency, one where we're out of negativity and we're in a creative state of thinking. When we're in a creative state of thinking, now we can actually solve world problems. We can actually solve problems in our local communities or in society or over social media with coaching programs, whatever it is. We can allow us to be open to come together and then elevate ourselves as a mankind, as a society as a whole, into a whole different plane. I mean, it's crazy, man, how much how much we're capable of and how much is possible. But we got to have the right energy. We got to be in the right state of mind and have the right belief systems.
Bro, me doing my podcast is I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know what it was. I had gone through some struggles. Was self-medicating. I had lost my wife at an early age to a car accident, and then I suffered one tragedy after another. And I dealt with it the way I dealt with it. I was able to straighten my life out, find love again, and truly find my purpose. And realizing that I do have a voice, and realizing that I can make an impact, even if it's just one person's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being able to do my podcast and being able to share these experiences and have my guests come on and share there's someone that might have to hear this episode. They needed to hear this.
Yeah. I mean, you're really just hitting it on the head, dude. Like, I haven't been out in, I've been out of the military for 4 years now, and I have not really done the whole, the social media game the entire time until pretty recently. And what really instigated that, the catalyst to that, was I started working with a dude, a guy to coach. And I used to think coaching was kind of like lame and I didn't really understand it. But then I started looking around and I was like, man, some of these guys are making millions of dollars a month. Maybe I should like reach out to them and see if they'll teach me how to do like the same, right? And of course it's not all about the money, it's about who you become in the process, right?
Yeah.
Because the service that you provide to the world is always going to reflect and be equal to the income that you receive. And so helping me develop and cultivate this mindset in the Marine Corps, if you thought you were good at anything, it was like, shut the hell up. Like every day you sucked, every day you're a piece of shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on here.
It's fine.
It just is, dude. Every single day, man. Every single day. And so when I got out of the military, there's a lot of negative, there's a lot of negatively instilled belief systems within me that, like, as soon as I try to like educate somebody, I'm like, well, who am I? Who do I think I am? Oh, I'm trying to educate somebody. Oh man, maybe I should just shut up before somebody tells me to shut up and puts me in my place. But I've learned that that's just my own ego. And that in order to have the greatest impact possible in this life, which it's a short life, I'm going to die soon anyways, then I need to speak up, because you're absolutely right. Like everybody goes through similar struggles of some kind, varying degrees, different experiences, right? And when they know other people are going through them, like suicide and depression, drug, alcohol abuse, which almost everybody in the world is suffering from one of those at this point in time. Okay, well, how'd you get out through that, man? Let me tell you. Let me tell you the things that I've learned in life and how I got myself through that. And maybe some of it will help you. And then before you know it, man, people start reaching out and you're helping people. And it's just like unbelievable.
No, it is. It's and like I said, for me it was after the one tragedy after another. It was just like, why am I such a horrible? I started questioning everything,
Yeah.
questioning God, questioning everything, questioning life. And then it took some time. Yeah, I went through my struggles. I did what I did in life, and that day came where I was like, I can't live like this no more. Can't continue to go down this path. This isn't what I'm intended here for. There's more to this, and
Yeah.
you hear that voice that's telling you you're meant for more. You're meant for greater things. And so to be able to turn my life around and have the wonderful support system as wonderful friends and family, and all that happened after I got out that I switched that mindset. I got out of that. Oh, why me, and more to the point like it happened. Let's deal with
Dude,
it and move on.
dude, it never ceases to amaze me, man, how people who have faced these adversities, it's always the same thing, right? Like I call this the true self, the maximum potential of oneself, and then your actual self, kind of like where you're at in life. And with every single thing that your conscious tells you not to do, the promises that you're supposed to be keeping to yourself that you break, the drugs, the alcohol, the women, the lies,
Mhm.
every single thing that you're not supposed to be doing, all that regret pulls your actual self further and further away from that true self, the maximum version of you. And Newton's law of motion, what happens to be emotion tends to stay in motion. So you just find yourself living and perpetuating and building up all these negative behavioral patterns in your life. The more you do something, then it becomes hardwired subconsciously, neurologically in your brain, because your brain, when it thinks consciously, burns a lot of calories, and your brain wants to conserve energy and it wants to keep us safe from harm. So in order to conserve energy, it programs into the subconscious, it becomes habitual. So now you've got all these negative habits that just keep building further momentum, dragging you further and further away from your true self, creating hopelessness and angst and depression and anxiety. And we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. We just see it getting darker and darker, because that's the direction we're going. That's the direction we're focused in. We as humans are emotional creatures. Information first and foremost goes to the emotional part of the brain, the amygdala, the fear center. And then it goes either to the primitive part, the fight or flight, or it goes to the logical thinking part, our conscious level, the neocortex. And the key here is that you said, man, I'm done. I thought to myself, I'm done living this way. Conscious intervention is possible. And I'm assuming when you were in that state of mind, you were probably a very emotional dude. Am I correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
So emotion, energy in motion, we as creatures, everything in life in the universe is made out of energy. Everything. It cannot be created nor destroyed, only reshaped or reformed into a different context. And so when we become emotional about something that we consciously are resonating, consciously forcing ourselves to think about, energy in motion, emotion, now we're putting the brakes on that downward spiral, right? And we're slowly beginning to, okay, well, how do I build myself back up? Well, I mean, I'm just guessing. I'm just going to kind of say what worked for me. I'm guessing you probably went a similar route, but I was like, man, I got to stop drinking. Okay, well, when do I start drinking? Nighttime. Okay, well, I'm going to need to go to bed early. So I started going to bed early so I wouldn't be awake during them drinking hours. I started getting up early. Well, what do I do when I get up early? I don't know. Social media, no, nothing's changed. My phone, nobody's calling or texting me. Well, I guess I'll read a book. So I started reading some books that started to make sense to me. I started drinking extra water in the morning time. I started brushing my teeth earlier in the morning time. I combed my hair, took an ice bath. It's all these little wins that we begin to stack. And this is what I call the realignment process. And you start to build that momentum. In which way? Now you're going positive, bro. And it's only a matter of time before, just like a spaceship leaving the planet Earth, right? It needs the most thrust at the Earth, because that's when gravity's at its strongest.
Yeah.
And when you reach that ozone layer, dude, and when you reach outer space, now you're just cruising, man. And you're just building and stacking wins one on top of the other. You find yourself realigning yourself to your true self and purpose in life. I mean, sorry, I know that was kind of a long little tangent,
Oh,
but
that was good, man. That was good. But
yeah,
man, this has been great, Joe. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you being on the show.
yeah,
Now
thanks.
is part of the show where you get the screen and you get to let people know where they can find you. Where's your websites, everything.
Cool, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. No, it's been a really good talk, dude. Um, and I hope this isn't the last time we talk either, because this stuff means something to me. But Joe Malone, Joseph _Malone _official is the Instagram. That's my newest center of focus. If you want safety tips, firearms training tips, travel safety, everything safety related, go on there, check it out. Let me know if you want to see something else. Talk a lot about mindset and nutrition as well. That's where the coaching program is run from, called Warriors in the Garden. And then southerncross.company is like the corporate training website. We got a little bit of personal stuff in there as well, but southerncross.company, all spelled out. And then if for whatever, Facebook, I'm on there as well, Joseph Malone. And then if you just want to reach out via email to our training team, it's training@southerncross.company. And hit us up with your inquiries, and we'll help you out.
All right, all right. Sarah, definitely, I would love to connect. So I'll link you. I'll send her your email and
Cool.
vice versa. She's an amazing person. Um, I got nothing but love for her. So I love making the connections when, especially that's why I started going live, was to have the interaction with people, and it's benefited in so many ways because people have questions and they get to get it answered right then and there, and they feel a part of the show.
Yeah.
So it's a different avenue, and I love it. I love that part of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But thank you, man. This has been great. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you.
It really has, man. I appreciate it, brother. And yeah, man, just have a good day, good rest of your day. Take care in the meantime. And yeah, let's try to maybe. I actually think I did schedule another one on accident for like
For
July.
July, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want
No,
to keep,
actually, it was September. I think is it July or
no,
September?
I think you're right. It is
It's in
September. Yeah.
September. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep
Cool,
it.
cool,
We're
man.
gonna keep it. So hopefully you have some new programs coming out that you can share with us. So, but we're gonna definitely keep that for some. I don't. I've had repeat guests, so it's not like it's something different. When I enjoy having great conversations, I love having people back on.
Cool,
It,
man.
it makes sense. But don't leave just yet. We're gonna chat a little bit off the air, but
Cool.
let me just close out the show.
All right, man.
All right, so thank you everybody in the chat. Sarah, a Pizzle, Facebook user. I don't know who it is, but they enjoyed Joe. So thank you. Shout out to Snowman. Shout out to everybody who stopped by and showed some love, man. Greatly appreciate it. And shout out to Ben to the BS3 Network, where we're streaming live right now every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Central time. Big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Big shout out to the boss lady. Love you. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know your boy Wise does it. Peace out.